Welcome to the CWC Podcast with your host, David Selby, Justin Reed, and Andy Horton.
So,
I like it.
what do you think of the Gonzaga
I like it.
campus here?
I like it. I like the vision. He knows where he wants to go. I like that.
Yeah, man.
It's hard to go somewhere if you don't have a vision.
Yeah.
So it worked.
Well, and that's like, so Anthony, so Gonzaga, it really, when I came to work here in 2020, it was a call from my brother Ben, who's 2 years younger than me. And he had been, it's basically president, vice president kind of thing with the Jones, Twine, and Net Wrap. And they called me when I was like at Lake of the Ozarks in May of 2020. Miranda was due with our first in August, and we're just like on the whole COVID train, just like I shoot all these events and do all these things, and a lot of that stuff was getting canceled, and so I was kind of pivoting to doing other things. And then Ben and Anthony kind of call me out the blue, and you can basically, from my side on the phone, I can just hear that they have a cell phone in the middle of the table, and they're both talking to me like this, and they're like, "We're looking for a marketing director, and we'll do this, this, and this, and we really want to start an e-commerce," and kind of pitching me this whole like idea. And I was very familiar with what Jones, Twine, and Net Wrap was already, because Ben had already worked here for several years, and then and Jones Boots, I had done commercials for Jones Boots, and more boots. I don't know if you've ever seen those commercials, but
I've seen.
But they hit me up and they were like, "Yeah, we want to start a marketing department. We want you to be the marketing director. What do you think of that?" And I'm like, "Well, a secure job sounds great."
Yeah, especially through COVID.
Yeah, like got salary and benefits and all that kind of stuff. And so jumped on that deal. And then within a year, basically we had everything kind of up and going to start agzaga.com. And that was, the whole idea was that we were going to be the Amazon of agriculture. And like he was telling you, all the way, like we literally had like built wireframes and mock-ups for the website that were Agazon. Like we did the whole like rigmarole where we had the logo, we had everything. And then it was like probably weeks out or months out from like actually launching this thing. And I just like came in and had a conversation with Anthony, and I was like, "Man, I don't think we should sound like Amazon." Like we all had kind of agreed on that, and it was a great working title because that was the direction we were going.
Yeah.
But then the time came and it was like, I don't think that that's what we should do. I don't think we should be a copycat. I think we should not look at what we are in 1 or 2 years. Let's look at what we're going to be in 5 or 10 years. And do we still want to just be like a ripoff of Amazon for what we're doing all the time? And we just kind of had this come to Jesus moment where it was like, no, let's figure something else out. And whether or not Agzaga is better than Agazon, I don't know, but we kept that like ag in there.
I like it.
And it all has really kind of just revealed itself over time. And now that's doing really well, which I stopped doing that. I stopped doing Agzaga at the end of 2023. Yeah, at the end of 2023. So last year in August, right before we went to the national championship Chuckwagon races, that's when I officially left Agzaga. But I had started the Chuckwagon channel at the start of 2023. So I kind of was running to something that I really, really liked. And I had done 3 years of stuff that was great. I loved it. Obviously left on good terms because they're sponsoring the podcast today. And so good relationship. So, but yeah, what'd you think of kind of walking around the Gonzaga / Jones Twine campus?
I had no idea this was here.
Yeah.
To be honest with you. I remember going down the highway many times, like Chiefs games and stuff. Or having to take one of the feed trucks from, the feed mill, Rich Hill. And I remember seeing the sign, but and we came over here and beat the britches off of Sheldon's football team, but we never drove down this street. I didn't even know this was here. So yeah, it was a pleasant surprise coming into this little town, and it's nice, clean, good people work here.
Yeah.
It's, and there's a vision. That's what I like.
Yeah.
When you're surrounded by people that have a vision and ambitions, it's encouraging.
I kind of had the feeling that I think that there's like one of two things that would happen when someone like you meets someone like Anthony. You either really hit it off because you're both visionary people, or sometimes like call it like A types don't work with A types or whatever, but like it would just be the complete opposite. You know what I'm saying? Like it'd be like, no, we have totally different visions and we don't get along. But I thought you guys would hit it off, and you did. I thought that was kind of funny.
Yeah, he dropped some just things that how his mind's working with the growing his company, and what I loved the most about the conversation is how he wants to take the people that are coming here every day with him, and that's what we're doing at the feed mill. We want to, if we're taking ourselves somewhere, we want to take everybody with us, and so that's what's nice, is to meet an owner that's like, I don't want you to work for as little as I can pay you. I want you to come with me,
Right.
and be an asset. So yeah, that's nice, and I think me and him get along great.
Yeah. So how far was it from South Greenfield to drive over here to Sheldon today?
It's not that far, maybe 50 minutes, 55 minutes.
Yeah, that's kind of what I figured. So
Yeah, it's not bad. Just what took so long was when I stopped at the cafe, and
the wonderful Sheldon Rockpile Cafe.
it took a while. Hamburger was great, but it took a while. I think they were short of cook,
Yeah.
but it was nice. I took some phone calls while I was there and get caught up on some stuff. So
Yep.
yeah, it worked out great.
Yeah, it's a great place to whip out a pack of cigarettes and have a sandwich. It's that is the Rockpile Cafe. It draws a fun crowd, and it's always interesting. And like in the wintertime, you go in there and they've got like their fireplace all lit up.
Yeah.
And
Oh, it's a neat place.
yeah, it's.
I mean, I'll definitely stop back in there just because I kind of like the feeling in there.
Yeah.
The farmers came in, and I was there for, I don't think it's like this normally, because I heard the lady say that they were kind of shorthanded in the kitchen. And so I was there for 35, 40 minutes waiting to get a cheeseburger. And, but I was enjoying just the atmosphere of it.
Yeah.
And there was no smoke in there, because if there was smoke, I would have got up and left, but I can't breathe it. So, but no, I actually kind of enjoyed watching the farmers come in there, and it's nice to see that.
Yeah, it's a very like stuck in time kind of place. Doesn't
Yeah.
nothing changes. Everybody's the same. The waitress does not bow down to anybody.
Oh, I saw that this gentleman, he said, I'm out of water, and you could tell they knew each other. And she goes, "Good for you. It's going to be a while." And I kind of thought, well, if you're here that often, just get up and go back there and get yourself. But I think he didn't want to, because he wanted to keep irritating her. So every time she come by, he'd shake his glass, and she like, "You're not getting it this time either." I mean, so it was nice to see.
Yeah, the place is fun. Well, I wanted to ask you some questions about kind of. So I really want to have a conversation today about like the history of the goat ranch and how we came to meet and kind of where things are going right now. I feel like there's, and I say this to people all the time, I feel like there's a bit of a movement with Chuckwagon racing in particular and the events surrounding them. And that is a huge difference between each of the different events that I go to and I shoot. But I think that your event's really, really interesting. A, because it's like the eyeball test, it clearly passes that it's a large event, it's growing, and knowing you, I know that it's there is a vision and it's going somewhere. So go back in time and tell me a little bit about like, where does Goat Ranch start, and then where does Baker-Spain come in?
Well, the Goat Ranch got its name back in 1960, and may have even established the slang name a little bit before that, because all of that ranch was just post oak timber, and so they put goats in there one year, and I think the family that owned the majority of it, now obviously it's grown a lot bigger than what it was back then, that lays along the highway now, but that's where the goat ranch started, was along 39 highway, and it was just solid post oak timber, and they threw some goats out there, so everybody started calling it the Goat Ranch. And I'm pretty sure, from what my grandpa always told me, was when they went to gather the goats up like 9 months later, that there might have been like 10% of what they turned out. I think the coyotes got most of them. And so that name just stuck though. And then a guy by the name of Ray Gare he bought it, And then he started buying more parcels, which back then, this is hard to believe, but back then, a lot of people in town would own 40 or 80 acres out in the country to either go hunt on or really to go chop their firewood. And so there was a lot of these little tracts of land. And so Ray started, buying small tracts of land with the goat ranch and just kind of kept putting it together. And he owned a couple dozers, and those dozers would run on the goat ranch 6 months out of the year. And then the other 6 months, he sent them out to hire to try to help pay for the cost of clearing off. And
so that was to get the timber off the land, or was that just to clear it?
He was a cattleman. He wanted, he wanted to clear it off, sow grass, and run. Back then, they ran a lot of yearlings. And I grew up, brush hogging for my grandpa and working cattle and riding horses on my grandfather's land. And I grew up always looking over the fence at the goat ranch.
Yeah.
And because it kind of wrapped around my grandfather's farm. And so, when you're brush hogging or riding your horse, I'm just a dreamer. I think I don't know any other way to live than to have a dream or, and have a vision of something. And so I'm like, I'm going to own that someday. I'm going to own that goat ranch. And I told my grandma and grandpa that. Was on our way to Fort Worth, Texas to watch the cutting fraternity in Fort Worth. Even back then as a young child, I always had a notebook and pen. And I started just drawing out what I thought the goat ranch looked like. I mean, I'd never really been on it besides a couple times riding my pony through it with, when we were trail riding or something.
And when you say like what it would look like, do you mean like as a mass of land, or like as like things that would be on the land?
No, both. So I can remember it just like it was yesterday. I was in the back seat and I just kind of, drew out kind of a map of a big chunk of land. And then I started thinking about, I picked up really early on. I'd ask my dad, so how does an 80 acre set? How does 40 set? How does 160 acre set? And a lot of times, quarter by quarter, or quarter by half, or half by half, And so I kind of already had that knowledge as a young kid. And so I'm sitting there like, well, I didn't know how the land actually laid as far as hills and stuff goes, but I'm like, I'm starting drawing out how I'm going to cross fence this off. And I started putting my mineral feeders out there, just having fun in the back seat while I'm going down there, just dreaming.
Yeah.
And I remember I sat up out of the back seat of the car and I leaned over and my grandpa was driving and my grandma was in the passenger seat. And I said, I'm going to own the goat ranch someday. And they didn't laugh. They didn't say, no, you're not.
Yeah.
That's a lot of land. And how are you going to, they didn't say, how are you going to pay for it? They didn't question anything. If I recall, my grandma said, well, I think that's a good plan. And that was just kind of it. And there was some times, through life as you get older that maybe I wasn't focused on owning the goat ranch per se, but I was born with a big auger. I don't know why, but I always thought, well, if I'm going to fail, I'm going to fail big.
Yeah.
Like this doesn't keep me focused like the little stuff. Like I want to do something that's going to keep me busy 24/7. And so whenever I was in high school, I was a sophomore in high school, getting ready to turn 16, and my dad said, hey, you're getting several cows on the land, and I had brush hogged every summer to kind of help pay for them to be on there. And he said, you need to try to find a place to rent your own. And so the next thing I know, my dad, he tells me, he says, hey, Bob Baker bought that farm and the house and all. And he's the one that actually owns the goat ranch, him and Steve Squibb.
And that was in what year?
That would have been in like
early 2000s?
Oh, very early. Yeah. Like 2002, maybe.
2000,
yeah, because I graduated in 07, so
and you
probably
said
04, maybe.
So bad names. You said, what's Baker's first name?
Bob Baker.
Bob Baker.
Yep.
So Bob Baker owns it. So now,
yeah, Bob Baker personally bought this 130 acres and the house where I live now.
Yeah.
And but him and his partner owned the rest of the goat ranch. And so it all joined, and it all joined my family's land. My dad comes home and he says, "Hey, I talked to Bob. He's gonna rent you that land, but there's kind of more grass there than you're gonna need right now, and we're in a drought, and so it'd be easier if we just put some heifers on it, and then after we wean calves, you can put yours on it." And so that's how we got started. And then, I put my cattle on there, and first time I met, Bob, I was down there working on some fence, and he was sitting up on the porch watching me, and he would just kind of come down there and just to get away from his busy life and talk to me a little bit. And then the next thing I know, he asked me to wash his tractor. He had a nice John Deere tractor and a 20-foot brush hog that he had bought, and he treated it like a bulldozer. And he said, "Hey, would you wash my tractor and wax the hood and everything?" I'm like, "Sure." I don't know anything about wax. I'm, researching what kind of wax do I buy for a tractor.
Yeah.
So he pulls down there one day, and, here I am, 16 years old, and on the hood of his tractor, and he says a quote from Lonesome Dove. And I pick up right where he left off. And because, I grew up just, honestly, I would fantasize that I lived that life. Like, there was a lot of times I'd be like, I'm in Lonesome Dove, and I'm, you're just hard to explain, but I did. I'd have my little toy tractors out there and my horses and cattle, and, I would have this big ranch, and I was going to be like Gus or Woodrow, depending on my mood that day.
Yeah.
And so I picked up right where he left off, and he just kind of looked at me. He's like, you know the movie Lonesome Dove? And I said, "Yes, sir. Better than you do."
Mm-hmm.
Front to back. And from that point on, we became very close.
Mm-hmm.
And so then as time went on, he saw that I like to work. And that's all we knew growing up was work. And so he started wanting me to rent more of his land, because some of it he had let grow up because he got, older and couldn't take care of it. And he said, "Well, I'm going to let you rent another 350 acres here because I want to clean it up." And so I, go to football practice, come home, pick rocks, he dissed up ground or whatever, and, or, take chainsaw, cut up trees, and, just clean the place up and get all the brush out of the way. And we just became closer and closer and closer. And in the summertime, I was with him a lot. And I'll never forget the first time he took me to lunch. We were going down 39 highway, right? We pulled right out of the goat ranch, going down 39, almost to the pins. And I don't even remember what we were talking about, but basically I made an excuse for somebody else's success. And he whipped that truck into the goat ranch corral in the parking lot. And he said, "I'm going to invest a lot of time in you." And I was like, "Okay." And he says, "It's going to start right now. Don't you ever make an excuse for somebody else's success. You always give credit where credit's due. If you don't like somebody, that's fine, but don't you ever do that again." And he said, "Right now, you have your mind needs reprogrammed." The whole way to Miller is like, "I am going to reprogram the way you think, because the way you think will never get you anywhere. You're thinking small, you're thinking, this way, that way." And he's like, "You can't think like that." And so for, quite a while there, I spent a lot of time with him, and learning a lot about business and how to borrow money, because I didn't come from a family that was borrowed money and buying things.
So there's this long story of you coming to meet Bob Baker, and Bob Baker kind of shares his business knowledge with you, and you get to experience the strife of acquiring and leasing and borrowing and doing all these things. And then, for years, Bob is kind of whispering in your ear that, "Hey, there's going to be something else that happens on this ranch. Maybe we should try doing trail rides or entertainment or something." And it was always kind of turned down. But then it sounds like the market crash or depression almost of 2008 kind of lingered on Bob and all of his investments and all of the debts that he had not paid. And then lo and behold, you guys finally pulled the trigger to do something that's not just ranching. And so that would have been the first year of Baker-Spain Stampede that includes both of you guys, but more specifically his daughter. It sounds like his daughter was more involved with the planning.
Yeah, he had passed away already at that point on year one.
Okay. So at that point it was kind of like shared land, shared opportunity to go ahead and push maybe a little bit of what his vision was.
Yeah, and I had attended a Chuckwagon race, like I said, there at Lockwood a few years prior, and they did a great job. I actually really enjoyed it. I was like, man, this is exciting. And me and Willie Guy, my brother-in-law that kind of runs the ranch for me now, we entered the ranch rodeo down there. I mean, I love the atmosphere. The only thing that I took away from them, like, man, they're doing such a great job. They couldn't do any more than what they were doing, but the property wasn't there. It wasn't big enough. It wasn't a big enough property. And so I left there thinking, man, that you just get to thinking, okay, if I were to do it, first, if I get where I want to do this, how would I do it? So I'd set up on Spectator Hill, and that's just kind of where I'd go, whether I was on horseback or on a gator or four-wheeler or whatever, and I'd just set up there and dream. And that's how I kind of mapped out how I'd lay it all out. And I think I'd hear stories from other venues of Chuckwagon races. Well, the races are over here and this is over here. And I'm like, no, I want everything right here. Like, I don't want people to get in a car and drive over somewhere else to watch a race and then have to drive back to, go to a food truck here. Like, I'm going to try to get this where everything is centralized. And so that's where it took place, is on the hill, of kind of how we're going to lay it out. Now, obviously, nothing that you see today was there besides the wall. On Spectator Hill, we did that the very first year. We were kind of talking and like, well, could we set some panels up there to kind of protect everybody? And I was like, no, then they got to see through them. I mean, everything, as you've kind of learned from me, spending time with me, everything that we're going to do, it's not, we're just going to build something.
Yeah.
It is thought through about how it's going to look and how the spectator is going to be able to watch the show.
Yeah, see it through that lens of your customer, if you will.
Yeah. I wanted them to feel like they were in the wagon.
Yeah.
That was my main thing. And so I'm like, we'll just build a wall and then they could set up on the wall.
Yeah.
And so that's how we kind of started that.
I think it's kind of cool that when you talk about being on Spectator Hill and kind of mapping things out, and I know you've spoken about how you'll like go up there and pray and visualize and stuff. I think it's kind of cool to think about kind of that story arc of how you mentioned earlier when you were a kid thinking about owning the goat ranch one day, that you would map things out on paper, kind of visualizing, or I guess manifesting is a good word, and kind of manifesting how that would go. And now you bring into your adult years. Now you sit on Spectator Hill and you're manifesting this entertainment venue. I'm curious to know at what point did you really make the shift from being rancher to you wanted to start looking through the lens of your spectator or your customer? When did that shift happen for you, that you weren't thinking as a rancher so much as you started thinking as a spectator?
Really, year one. I mean, I sit on that hill and I'm thinking, okay, this is how it's going to set. The problem was I didn't have any money to build anything. I had bought and sold some property north of Springfield and made some pretty good money on it. And I took that money to try to launch the Stampede, because what happened to me was, here I was, big dog, 2014, 15, 16 comes along, and I'm walking the floors again because the cattle market crashes. The fall of 15,
this is a couple years into having the event.
Yeah, the event started in 2017.
Okay.
Is when the event took place. And so in the fall of 2015.
Great time to mention Exaga Toys here, huh?
Yeah, no kidding.
They're like, talk about us, our sponsor for today.
So in 2015, as the rancher, what you refer to me as, I don't know what I really was, to be quite honest with you, but crazy person. But in the fall of 15, I thought the market was kind of starting to come down on these cattle from their all-time highs. And I thought, man, now it's time to just borrow up big. And so at that time, I had accrued quite a bit of cash for myself. And I thought, well, I'm going to leverage this. And so I personally, not the partnership, but me personally, I went and borrowed 2.5 million on top of the cash we had, and invested that money in first calf heifers in the fall of 2015. The first cow payment that came due, I remember about I 60 days probably before it was due. I called Matt, which is Stan's son, and he was my banker at the time. And I said, I don't have to tell you, I cannot make that payment. I could pay the interest, but I cannot make that principal payment on them cattle. And he said, oh yeah, we know. We've done the math. Like, it ain't gonna happen. And he said, bring in the interest. So I did, and I had just enough to make that. And so the next year comes around. Well, the problem is with first calf heifers is the breed back is so terrible. And so having all them open cows that next year not giving me a calf, it got extremely difficult again. And so I put bulls on them on the open cattle and got them bred, but it deferred, my income. And so I called the bank again, and I'm like, hey, it's a little bit better. I mean, I'm almost there to make my payment, but I'm not quite there. And like, well, bring in what you got. And that's really where I went to that hill, and I was like crying out to God. Like, I really thought I was probably just going to end my life. I really was. I was in a dark place. I thought, here I was. I proved to everybody that I could do what they said could not be done. I didn't inherit any of this, like some people thought, but like I did this. Here I was beating myself on the chest. I did this. I made this money. I've accomplished this. I bought, I own half of this ranch. And so a real estate deal came along, and of course the bank wanted most of that profit. And I think they let me keep 100,000 of the profit. And that's what we used to start the Stampede with. And we lost every bit of that, like every bit of that money. Like it's crazy to think about. We're like, how did we lose $90-some thousand the first year of this, And so it was gone. And most people would have probably said, we'll never do that again. But there was something about it that I kind of fell in love with. It's a rush to see people flocking in and enjoying your place where you live. And so we just stuck with it. And then every time, like, I would make a real estate deal or a trade, or, then lo and behold, the cattle market does come back, and, we have spare cash, we build stuff. Well, then I fell in love with, I was always in love with cleaning up a place and making it look pretty. But then I fell in love with building stuff, like really building. And I'm addicted to putting iron, like not me personally putting iron together, but calling the boys, L&L Construction, and telling Chris, hey, I got another building. Like it's a rush. And now we have such a team of people coming together, daily out there to build stuff, that's what I love more than anything. Yeah. And so that's kind of, and big, if you shrink it down. And then, obviously, as we've talked before about when I started seeing all the kids start showing up, then it gets different. Then there's this place in my heart that I have to have this. Like, I have to do this. And so, and then now that we've brought in the Christian concerts and our mission with helping recoveries, it's even a stronger, we have to do this. This isn't really a choice now. Now we're being obedient, and we've got to do this. We got to give people a place that they can afford to come have a vacation, or, even a long weekend, and have fun events to see, and some of the best Western sports competed on grass that they can imagine, and bring their family to it and enjoy it, and a safe place. And that's why we refer to it as God's country, because I go to the city, and you might see some things I'm like, oh, that's nice, but you get out there on the ranch, there's just you can feel the spirit out there, or at least I can. And so that's kind of, we want to share that with people.
Yeah.
We want to share that with people. And
You kind of mentioned how like that first year of Baker-Spain, which, we're going in, will this be the 10th? I'm sorry. Will this be 10 in 2025 or?
no, we'll be 9.
It'll be 9. Okay.
Yeah, so the math confuses you because you're like, well, 2017, that's not right. But see, you have to 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24.
Yeah. And so now we're going to year 9 in 2025.
It gets me all the time. I'm like, no.
Yeah, that throws me off so bad. But so you guys, you said that money was always such a struggle. And then you kind of get to where you finally do Baker-Spain for the first time. At what year do you feel like you guys did it and things started to make more sense, And I know that in the last year, you guys have done so much more, like you've resurrected structures in the last year, and that seemed like that must have been the biggest jump ever for you guys. But in what year do you feel like it maybe kind of clicked in year 1 through 7 there, that it started to make more sense, that like you had a lot more confidence going forward with the event, that you knew it could actually produce something?
I get kind of confused on my years. I do know this. As we were going through the buyout with the Bakers, there's year 2 and 3 blend for me, because there was that fear of, I'm doing this for nothing. We might not be able to reach an agreement, and the judge may say, well, we're going to auction it off to the highest bidder. And so I was doing the event, but I was kind of reserved because I'm like, this may be for nothing. And, as we've talked before, through that is where my prayer life started to change, and where I started going to the hill and praying for God to lead me through that. Cause it was 3 years almost of just brutal. I'm just tired of worrying. Like, am I working for nothing here? Like, what am I doing? And I just didn't want that anymore. And so that's when I first went to Spectator Hill, and I cried out to God, and had one of those broken prayer moments when you're praying and you have nothing left. You just want your life. And that is when God spoke to me, and he's like, this has not been you. And it was almost like, if you read Revelations and he gives them the vision of heaven and stuff, but it seems like so fast. That's how I almost felt, not seeing heaven, but I saw my past of how all those times I thought that was me. I thought it was me. Like, well, how do you think all of the, whether it's Lisa McCrussell Ranch, or, even meeting Bob Baker, or, this person in my life, I had all of these pieces of the puzzle that came into my life. And this network of people. And it's like, he just showed that to me. I was like, that was me all along. You think you could own this at your age, like your dream? It's been me all along. Now get out of my way, and I'm going to show you my power. And so that's what I did. And I actually remember emailing my attorney right there. And I said, no further negotiations. Let's just be quiet, be still. And then it all started coming together. And before you know it, that was behind me. And I thought I would, and again, like I said earlier, when I first bought part of the goat ranch with Bob, whenever I owned half of it with him, I thought I would have this, like, I'm the man type feeling, well, now it's, now it's mine, all mine. I thought I would have that feeling, and I didn't. I had a broken feeling, and I had it for quite a while. And so I remember going back to the hill, and I was praying. I'm like, God, you said this, like, this was all you. I own it now. It's crazy to think that I'm here. Why am I not happy? And that's when he spoke to me, and he said, because I gave you a stage, you better start using it for my glory. And I still get emotional, because when you hear God speak to you, you can't say no, or you don't want to say no. I can tell you that there's going to be some consequences. And okay, well, what does that look like? What does it look like to use this stage? And it wasn't meaning the stage that an artist that's on. It means the stage, the venue. These people are coming in, and it never was really a drunken fest. I mean, yes, there's people that drink down there, and just like they're drinking in this little town tonight, somebody's drinking somewhere. And that's what we have. We have a town that moves into the ranch for that week. But I thought, well, what is Josh supposed to start doing? And that's when I thought, well, we're going to start praying. So I started praying, and he's like, you're going to have a Christian concert through this week. Now,
And that started in 23, right?
that started in 2023.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that was my first time coming to the event, which everything happens for a reason, you know?
Absolutely.
And that was, I think that's when God wanted it to be publicized. You know?
Yeah.
Like, at least with whatever I do, I guess.
No, he brings people together,
Yeah.
and there's things that I'm going to take from you that I need, from you, and you're going to take for his glory, if that's where our heart's at,
Right.
or if your heart's not there, it's going to go down a bad road,
Yeah.
and we see that a lot now that we work with whosoever with the recovery homes, and their stories are all the same. They are the wrong people, and unfortunately, family members, they're in a family that is addicted to meth or heroin, and family, a lot of them family get them on it. And so you see that. So either your heart's right and you're striving for Christ, or you're outside of that, and the devil's going to get a hold of you and lead you down some bad roads. And so, when we started praying, and I was like, a Christian concert, I wish I had a video camera crew at that time following us around, because I walked into the house. Jordan was in the back room, and I was hollering for her. She's like, what do you want? I said, we're going to have a Christian concert down there. That's what we're going to do on Wednesday night. And she just kind of looked at me, and she's like, I don't think that will go over. And I was like, what do you mean? And she said, they're not going to come out here to that. I said, I don't care. That's what we're doing. I was praying about it. That's what we're supposed to do. And she's like, then she was all in. Yep. Okay. That's what we're supposed to do. And so my aunt from Texas calls when she hears about that, the plan. And she said, you better start praying a whole new way. You better start praying that the Holy Spirit leads you, because you do not have what it takes to take what's coming for you. And when she said that, it reminded me of exactly what Bob Baker had told me when we first started leasing the Crussell Ranch. He looked at me and he said, are you ready for this? I said, this is nothing. I can run cattle. I know what I'm doing. He said, it ain't cattle I'm talking about. People will hate you for this, for renting land. And I was like, whatever. Oh, he's right. He is right. I found that out really quick. My aunt was right. When you are doing what you're supposed to be doing,
Yeah.
and answering a call, you can bet the devil's going to be right there, and he's going to use people that's the closest to you to try to get you off track. And I was kind of in that same mindset as I was many years ago when Bob said that about, am I ready for the people to hate me for just renting some land? I was young.
Mm-hmm.
I was 19 years old. I'm like, what are you talking about there? Hate me for renting land? So I started praying my own selfish prayer. And I don't know if you've ever done that before, but I was like, God, just prove to all of these people your power, and just have us a magnitude of a revival down here. And I want to, here we go, what I'm talking about. I want to see people baptized. I want to see people born again, give their life to Christ, lay down the life of addiction, whatever it is. Let's just blow this thing completely up, God. And I prayed that for several weeks. That's a pretty good prayer, right? Like, you want good.
Yeah.
But I was wanting it to prove. God doesn't have to prove his power. Open the Bible. His power has been proven. It's all right there. But I was wanting him to prove it, to prove all these people that was attacking me. I was wanting to prove them wrong. So it sounded like a good prayer. And then right before the Stampede, we was in a prayer circle.
23?
Mhm.
Right before 23?
Right before Crowder, 23. We was in a prayer circle with our church. We met down there at the Stampede before church every Sunday and prayed.
Uh-huh.
And I don't know what came over me, but all of a sudden God spoke to me in that prayer, and I didn't pray for that. I prayed for one person just to come to the saving knowledge of Jesus Christ. And it just felt like God was just right there with me. Like, my son will go after one sheep. Don't you worry about the thousands. Don't you worry about all these other people. Pray that I will send you one person that needs to hear the gospel of Jesus Christ. So I started praying that for I don't know, maybe 20, 30 times a day. Persistent. Lord, send one. And as always, you're worried, like, how many people are going to show up. I didn't even care that day. I was like, just send me one person, and I don't care as long as they're here and they need to hear the gospel. They need to know Jesus Christ. That's all I care about. And man, you talk about powerful stuff. When I have people coming to us right and left saying, they're in tears. Hey, I've been fighting addiction and I'm done. Like, I want Jesus Christ. And we went down the creek and we baptized 2 people.
Ugh, I need a shopping assistant.
Holiday shopping got you stressed?
Oh heavens.
Oh heavens is right. I'm Exaga Angel. How can I help you today?
Between my kids and their cousins, I need farm animal toys for a 1-year-old, a 2-year-old, a 3-year-old, a 4-year-old,
Say no more. You can get all of your toddler's farm toys on Exaga.com.
Son of a nutcracker. They have toys for all ages.
And they have the best farm sets for toddlers. They even have the large plastic farm animals that you played with as a kid.
Thank you so much, Exaga Angel. From now on, I'm getting my kids' toys from Exaga.com.
Just coming back from our sponsorship break here, got to give the nod to the Zaga Toys and Exaga.com. Make sure you guys go check out what they're doing. Their holiday stuff is really unrivaled. The deals that they have, I know from working here personally in previous years that they try very hard to not only bring a wide variety of awesome like farm toys and stuff like that, lots of name brand, but also their own brand, Zaga Toys. But they also have they have a very competitive price point with all the stuff that they do too. So go check them out, exaga.com, and thank you to them for sponsoring the show today. So getting back into the goat ranch and the Baker-Spain Stampede, I think it's awesome to hear the story about all of the like revelation that has come through having this event, and your whole story of your life and how God has brought you to this point to where you have this, it's not just the Stampede, you have this venue, you have this land, you have this place that people love to come and just be there.
Yeah.
And I know I kind of sum it up with like Baker-Spain Stampede, and you've got the party in the pasture of the fall, but to hear that in 2023 there was this shift, it was almost like this revival, which is, you kind of mentioned you were kind of praying for that, but it's like, and with so many things in life, we don't really know what it's going to look like until it comes.
Yeah.
But it was neat to see in 2023 how you guys brought in that contemporary Christian artist Crowder on a Wednesday night. And what was that like for you guys to see that? How would you explain how that night went?
I think is it Luke Bryan that sings the song "I Don't Want This Night to End"? I think it's a Luke Bryan song.
Okay.
That's how it felt.
Yeah.
There was the spirit was there, and the energy was like no country concert that I have ever been to. I saw people in the gravel on their knees praying. I saw, an 80-year-old man, 81 maybe, jumping up and down when Crowder and them they started rapping, And I'm like, whoa. I mean, there was just, it was amazing. It was amazing. And all, all it did was just encourage me that, that not necessarily like, hey, we got to do that again, but that when God tells you to do something and you do it, it's not always going to be easy. You're going to have, you're going to have some fights along the way. But do what you're supposed to be doing.
Yeah, you can tell that event that night bore fruit. And and I also think, I don't know. I mean, yeah, you guys you were already seeing the concerts work, and you guys had already shown that you were kind of maybe part of. Do you think that some of what you were learning about doing the bringing in artists and learning that world of business, if you will, do you think that was all going toward that first night with Crowder, or do you feel like that was Crowder opened up more of what you guys are doing now with artists?
No, I don't think that's even that is a hard thing to explain. I call Wednesday night church night. That's what I call it. Okay. It is in no way, shape, or form the same thing. Even preparing for it, that is what has led me to praying, now a year prior to the Stampede. It's a constant prayer, where before I wasn't praying for the Stampede, and so it brings in the Holy Spirit is invited there. And so as far as that goes, our main goal is for Wednesday night to not be a show.
Yeah,
I want it to be the real deal. And so really everything that you do on a country concert night or anything like that, that you're trying to entertain, you're trying to put on a show. Wednesday night, we pray about it before that artist comes on stage. We have a prayer meeting on the stage with people there. This is not a show.
Yeah,
you are not here to worship Zach Williams, Ann Wilson, Crowder, whoever we have on there. You're here to worship, to pray, give praise. That's what you need to be doing. And we don't want anybody to be there for a show on Wednesday night. It's not to be entertained.
It's a special thing.
It's a special thing. And, obviously, you were there this year.
Yeah.
We started off with, bluegrass with a steak dinner on Tuesday night, which was so nice and nice and relaxing. I enjoyed it. I had so much fun at that. And then we come into the church night, and it kind of just set the tone for the week. And having Sawyer Brown, everybody knows the energy that he brings. And so then we come into Friday morning, and we have the accident in the pasture open with Donnie. And I'm immune to seeing people get knocked out. I mean, it happens.
Mm-hmm.
But that was different. And it's still to this day, it's scary. Like I think about it, I'm like, golly, there wasn't a paramedic there that thought he would live. The chopper came in. They had a Navy SEAL.
And to clarify for anybody that doesn't know, this was during the pasture opening
on Friday morning.
Yeah. And did he get rolled over by his horse? Or
the steer went down. The header roped the steer, turned off. Steer went down, and he was coming in to heel, and his horse tripped over the steer basically, and just slingshot him right into the dirt, head first.
Okay.
And I got down there I was right there. And luckily our first responders, they saved his life. That and the power of prayer, I'm telling you, they got on him in seconds. And people that weren't on shift. These are people that they're spectators. They carry the stuff around with them.
Yeah.
And they sat right against that fence. And they hopped the fence. They were on him. And they opened up his airway and salted him down. And I'll tell you what, this was a different type of accident. And people were praying that day that had never prayed before. He had his best buddies there that they were crying out to God, and we have the biggest concert that we have had yet coming that night with Riley Green.
Right.
The biggest audience before a concert that we've ever had.
For sure.
And right before the show, Brandon Wren, our rodeo announcer, me and him had already been talking along with, he's part of the team. So we were talking about, what we're going to do this year, and we're all going to be praying. And then this happened, and everybody was shook up. Somebody's going to not make it through the night. And Brandon was standing there, and I said, I can't do this, but you're going to have to go on stage and pray. I can't keep it together. And he said, yes, sir. And I will tell you what, watching Brandon walk up in front of Riley Green before he takes stage in front of thousands of people and pray a congregational prayer at a country concert, it was powerful stuff. And everybody was very emotional that whole week.
Yeah.
And as God laid on my heart, of what the opening ceremony was going to look like, with the flag over by the waterfall. I knew that Come Jesus Come was a song that God laid on my heart, and it changed my life. And I told Brandon, I said, that's your opening song. And typically, even when somebody is all for what you're doing, you still get that knee-jerk reaction of, I don't know that we need to do this.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't have that at all with Brandon. I text him, by the way, on TikTok, that video has been seen millions of times. It's huge. It's a huge video. And
and
it's insane.
yeah, and that was like you had told me that we got to make sure we get this. We got to make sure we get the videos on this and everything. And it was still, even until the video went out there, I don't think I completely fully grasped the impact that it was going to have for people. Because, when you go to production-based events, you see, you do something patriotic, you do something that pulls heartstrings or whatever. And it did do that. It was very, everybody was engaged. But what's different about your event, I think, or one of the biggest things that's so different is that you guys have that Wednesday night, church night, if you will. And church, not just like you go and you sit in a pew, but like it's an experience.
Yeah.
And it gets people's hearts to open.
Yeah.
And that's so important. And that's something that you just I never could have known until I saw it happen. Mm-hmm. But especially in 23, the way it set the tone, and then you're able to take that and learn from it and expand on it. So 24, everybody's hearts are open going into the weekend, and now you know what to do to fill them up. Now that the heart is open, how can you fill it up and give people, I'm not saying like capitalize on it in a bad way, but to capitalize on that in a good way. And so people that have their hearts open and they want to be fed with something, what can you do as the person that's putting them on the show? And I think that the way that you set up that Saturday morning, it was Saturday before the races. It's the opening ceremony. Yeah. You've got the biggest flag a guy can even hold on a horse.
It requires a draft horse. I call Leroy over here. You got a draft horse? Well, yeah, I got a draft horse. He's been doing it since year 2.
Yeah, one good gust of wind would have been walking sideways with that or tipped over. But yeah, like this, even the story of like keeping that flag attached to Leroy as he's coming in, and it's this whole thing, and even the first edition of that edit that I gave back to you guys, you're like, why'd you change the song? I was like, oh, it's like 5 minutes long. And people may not want to sit there for a whole 5 minutes to do this whole thing like we all did when we were there. You're like, no, let's just do it with the song. And I was like, all right, well, I worked really hard on that, Josh, but that's fine. Let's put it out the way you want to do it. And sure enough, man, that thing it blew up. No, it was great.
Well, you said something that sent me back to 2023 after the Crowder concert. I had a lady and her husband catch me. They were going to their car, and they were talking about how they could feel the Spirit and how thankful they were. And they said, why do you want to do this? And I said, hey, listen, I don't know that I want to do this. I have to do this, like called to do it. And people want to be fed. And the problem is they just don't know what they're after. And we have to feed them the Spirit. And so when you said that of feeding people, that's what it is. And we have all of these people. It's Saturday, right? It's they've some of them haven't got there yet, but most of them's already there.
Yeah.
They've had a big Friday night, had big, Riley Green, had a big Friday night. And I don't care how many of them have a beer in their hand. I don't care how many of them are hungover. I do not care.
Yeah.
At the ranch, we are going to show what we stand for, and that is God and country and family. That is what we stand for. And there's nothing better than that song, Come Jesus Come, which is what we, luckily we can fist bump Trump win. Yeah. But, praying for Christ to come back into our country. We're not, everybody thinks that, well, you got to be perfect for that. No, look at Paul and Peter in Scripture. I mean, none of these people were perfect. We're all going to make mistakes. And so the key is knowing who your Father is and knowing that you need a Savior. And we're going to cry out that Christ come back and be at the ranch, like be present, be all over us. Like, we know you're here. Like, we know that God's in this room, but he wants to be invited. And so that Come Jesus Come is a song that is so powerful. And Stephen, when we sent our offering for 2025 for church night, the songwriter and the guy who was singing that, when we sent our offering, we sent that video because it's his song. We didn't have to wait 2 months like we do on most of these artists. He was like, I'm in.
Oh yeah. That's great.
So he loved it, and his team loved it, and he's after saving, speaking the name of Jesus. And so I'm excited to see him in 2025 come and open for Kane. And it's going to be another wonderful night. But, to go to that Saturday morning and to go back with Brandon Wren, I text him that song the week prior before he, Brandon came in early in the week, set up camp. And I text him the week prior the song. I said, this is the song for the opening ceremony. And he didn't call me. He texted me, and his text said everything that I needed to know. He had to pull off the side of the road when he heard that song, and he had to have a little prayer himself.
Yeah. It's emotion.
And so, Saturday morning, he said, I don't know if I could say anything. I don't know. I've been up praying all night long. I prayed this morning, Josh, and he said, God is speaking to me, and it's about vision. And that's what he told me. And he said, I'm not going in the crow's nest. I don't know what I'm going to do, but I'm not going in the crow's nest. I got to be able to move. And I said, Brandon, I trust you. You do whatever you feel like you need to do. So I had no idea, anything that he was going to say. I really didn't even know how it was going to go as far as the timing went.
And according to him, he didn't know what he was going to say either.
No, and he didn't. He told me that morning, he said, I don't know what I'm going to say, if I'm going to say anything, but all I know is God said vision. And so, when things get said to me, like you said earlier with being fed, and Brandon said that's with vision, it took me back to my favorite scene, The Lonesome Dove, when, Woodrow's back in Texas, and he's, it's at the end of the movie, he just buried his best friend, Augustus McCrae, and there's a reporter there, and he's like, are you Woodrow Call? And he's talking to him, and he says, they say you're a man of vision. And so when Brandon said to me that morning, I was like, oh gosh, like, yes, because yes, do whatever you're called to do. You speak about whatever you want, Brandon. The platform is yours. And, as you can see in the video, the closer that flag gets and the more that Stephen is screaming, as you can hear in the song, like just screaming out to Christ, you can't help but get emotional. And all I thought about is all of the blessings that he's blessed me with, and I don't deserve any of them. And I got to thinking about, I wish my grandpa was here to see this, old cowboy that loved bronc riding and loved the roping, and my dad that loved all of the same stuff. But my dad was a big worship man. I mean, he loved to worship, and I thought he would love this right now, right here and now. And, with our mother-in-law fighting cancer, going through all of this stuff, and just us just saying, here we are. This is us. This is who we are. And people as guests on the ranch, which I don't really like to call them guests because I really want them to feel like they own it when they're there. Like, this is, you paid at the gate, treat it like it's yours. But we shared that with how many thousand people all on the hill and around the track.
It was a magical moment. Yeah. I mean, that's really the only way I can put it. It was, maybe it's not for everybody, but yeah, if you were there and you're a part of it, I think that that's special in and of itself. Even if, it didn't cause a revival for a lot of people or most of the people there, it was really cool to come back around Sunday morning and catch, immediately following church. I'm thinking, okay, I gotta get cameras set up and get everything set up for these races. And you guys are finishing church and heading down to the river. Like, well, I guess we're gonna go shoot at the river. All right, let's do that. We'll just scramble and shoot the races. That's fine.
Yeah.
Which was fine. And yeah, you guys had a bunch of people get baptized. And
13.
And
Yeah.
speaking of, one of those girls that got baptized was a girl that randomly
Amen.
wanted to come and shoot photos. And I had a weird moment where, like, Jordan had sent her my way, like, because you guys apparently think I shoot photos down there. So you sent the girl that wants to shoot photos my way. So I tell her, I just wanted to make sure, first of all, that she wasn't just somebody trying to get a free pass in there. And I could tell she just genuinely wanted to learn. And, I look at that as like, hey, if I can get somebody pass on some of the help I've been given through the years of just getting to be thrown into an event and have an opportunity to learn something, I'd love to do that. And plus, maybe she'll take great photos and it'll be something that we can share. Yeah. And sure enough, she comes down there. I let her borrow a lens because she didn't have like a lens that was going to get much done that she wanted to get done. And she came by herself in her car. I think she camped out of her car and she had her dog there. And, she just shoots stuff during the races. And I gave her some advice on like, hey, I would try shooting it like this, like, do a couple of these things, do some of these camera settings like this. And she ended up just having a great week. And then sure enough, she's there Sunday morning. I didn't even recognize her Sunday morning until she was out there like getting baptized. I was like, oh my gosh, like she was a completely changed person from going to the event. And it was totally a God thing. And and she actually followed up with me recently, asked me for that video clip. And I need to send it to her.
She came forward during church.
Yeah.
It's crazy to think about this. The first Stampede, I mean, we probably had 500 people there, really. That's 500 or 600 people. And
where did the numbers get to this last year? Roughly.
I really don't know because we have so many kids, 10 under are free. Mm-hmm. And I don't know how many people do that, but, so it's kind of hard to count. But I mean, we're hitting big numbers now. And, and really, yeah, but, now we don't gauge things off the numbers now. Like, we just strive for what we had last year. I mean, just have those same spirit-led moments with people. And, it's amazing how many people come to you and say, hey, I was an alcoholic. I've been sober for a year. I mean, I love hearing these stories and sharing things with them, but it's crazy to think about the numbers from the first year are our church numbers on Sunday are over 300. We had 340 people there for church at the pavilion for church. That's almost what we had the first year for everybody out of the gate. And, she came forward at the end of church and actually I prayed with her and it was really nice. And then, going to the creek and, we baptized our oldest son and our Jordan's cousin. And, there's 13 people baptized. And I tell you what, you come to watch a Chuckwagon race and you get to go watch a baptism. I mean, I don't know. I think the baptism's better, but it is nice. It's so nice. And it's nice to be able to open up the gates to people like that. And they feel welcome, at church and there's no dress code.
Yeah. It's a special thing. And, I thought it was pretty neat to see going from 23 to 24. You guys invested over $1 million into the ranch, and you resurrected this massive stage, the pavilion, double-decker open-air pavilion.
Yeah.
You built the merch building. You guys are doing more this year.
Shower houses.
The list goes on and on. Talk a little bit about, so you were kind of telling me the other day, you guys are adding more on for 2025.
Yeah, we're in construction right now.
So what's that look like in 2025?
My phone keeps buzzing because it's probably construction guys down there. Yeah. The boys are taking care of things, but so we made a deal with Emery Sapp & Sons, and I'll tell you what, I'm so excited about this, and most people are going to be like, is it really that big of a deal? It's a big deal to me. I love this. They came to us and they said, hey, we want to be number one sponsor of this event. What you're doing, we want to be a part of. And so I said, well, what do you want to do? And they said, well, what do you need? Tell us what your needs are. See if there's something that our business can provide. And I said, I want chip and seal. So we got miles of dirt roads that we got to take water trucks up and down. And, we've got enough room that the horses don't have to walk on the road. They can walk to the side. And so we don't have to worry about them slipping and falling, but we need chip and seal, keep the dust down. And they said, that's right up our alley. And so we went to the negotiating room and negotiated out, a sponsorship package and a price that fit what, I should say a budget because I don't have a budget, but I thought it was fair of what they're willing to do and what I'm going to have to spend for them to do a double layer chip and seal. And, getting 3.5 miles from the highway all the way down across our bridge to the pavilion in front of the waterfall, and then all the way north to the next county road down there below into the next swimming hole.
Wow.
And so I'm so excited about that. And it's not something that is a structure, but I'm so excited because I think people are going to really appreciate that they're not driving on gravel, that they're not, having to walk on gravel.
So you guys are going to have double layer chip and seal for 3.5 miles all over the ranch.
Yeah, and wider roads.
Wire roads.
Yeah. Yep.
And then
So
you guys had Gary Allen in the fall here, and that was for your concert week, which is called Party in the Pasture.
Yeah.
And so one thing I wanted to get into today was I want to talk about the artists that you guys are considering for 2025.
Yeah.
And maybe talk a little bit. One thing I think that's really cool about what you do, and you guys did this last year too, where you invited me to come and do kind of this meeting of the minds. I don't know what you guys call it, but both last year.
The boardroom, yeah.
Yeah. And you guys kind of have this fall or winter meeting or whatever where you all talk and you get together and you visualize and you share ideas, and you very much have this team thing going on, which I think is awesome. It's very unselfish. It's like very like, let's get people into the room and talk about it and see what people think. And you listen to everybody really well, which is so important. So for 2025, what are some of the artists that you guys are looking at having at the Goat Ranch for Baker-Spain Stampede?
Well, first we need to back up to as you were at the meeting and talk about when the gates are going to open for 2025. And so we're going to this is the first year that we are going to open up the gates the weekend before the Stampede for people to come in and start camping. And so with that being said, since we decided that, then that means, well, Josh has got to get on the phone and find another artist so we can have something going on Saturday night. And so as we're working through that, which the whole getting concerts booked, people don't understand how complicated that is. They'll tell you these people are available, so you go after one of them. They're not. So then you go after the other one. Well, now he's not. I mean, it's a very complex deal. As soon as you think you got somebody, maybe you don't. And so we might even be doing maybe a comedian on Saturday night before. And as you were I don't know if you were at the steak dinner last year.
No, I didn't make this.
But we're gonna definitely have some sort of entertainment on Monday night with some sort of dinner. We're talking like a Chuckwagon dinner. And then Tuesday night, our steak dinner with another, soft band of some kind. And then obviously our Wednesday night, we have Stephen Wither, the writer of Come Jesus Come, and we're super excited about that. And he'll be opening for Kane, and most everybody knows who Kane is, and that's going to be a big one. And so then we go into our Throwback Thursday night is what we call it. So we try to get that 90s country, and we got Larry Fleet coming to open for Tracy Bird. And I don't know if anybody's seen Tracy Bird live, but he is awesome. And he'll talk about, doing the watermelon crawl and all kinds of stuff. And then we go into what we have, the big night. Friday night is what we try to strive to have kind of our bigger artist on Friday night. And getting this band booked, I'll tell you what, this was a fight for us. We wanted them. We wanted them really, really bad. And it looked like we were going to get them, that it didn't. And then I kind of, might have lost my temper a little bit with our agent. Was like, get it done. Oh, don't lose the bell.
Got the Hayville.
I probably need to redo that one. That might look a little silly, but so I guess it's a podcast. It doesn't matter. But I was like, you guys got to get this done. Like, kind of had to put my feet down a little bit, dig my heels in, and here they come. Said, yeah, Whiskey Myers is all yours. And so that is going to be one heck of a night.
And they've got an opener.
We have some offers in on the openers on that Friday night. And then, as most people know, we have chased for a long time trying to get Zach Top in. And it has just been, it really what I was struggling with is being discouraged by it. I'm like, I've been chasing this for so long and I'm not going to get it. And then I'm not going to just appreciate the fact that we got Whiskey Myers, which is who is, really, really after.
They're just crazy big right now.
Crazy big and just awesome. And that Southern rock country. And, so here we are fighting for Zach Top for Saturday night. And we just keep offering more money. And we keep saying, hey, our, 10 and under is free. Like, we're throwing everything at them. Like, have some sympathy for us, And they said it probably is not going to happen. Like, quit wasting your time. Like we've gave this months, ever since the Stampede is when we made the first offer, and then we just kind of kept offering more money. And, it kind of got to this, I'm used to real estate deals. Okay. If you don't want to sell it, but you do want to sell it, what's the price? Like, just hit me with it. I don't want to bid against myself. Tell me what it's going to take. And so we even tried that method. Like, what is it going to take? I'm not, just throw a number at me. And they wouldn't even give me a number. And they knew that, obviously booking Whiskey Myers, that, we're used to paying a huge number for an act. And so here we are, trying to get everything finalized. And it's just a disappointment for them to just kind of, hey, you probably just need to pull that. It's not going to happen this year. You need to try again for 2026. And I don't like losing. And so I've been like, well, what do I got to replace that with? And so this morning, as I was going through the roster and stuff, I've got some bands that I'm looking at, and I was reminded of, on Saturday night, everybody just really wants to dance. They want to just hang out and dance. I don't know that they need some big star. They just want somebody that can sing good dancing music. And so Saturday night, what I can promise is the band will be a good band that will give you good music to dance and drink your cold beer to.
Yeah.
And so, that's what we have booked right now. And I'm extremely excited about launching the opening of the gates earlier.
Yeah. Well, and you guys do this week-long option. And, last year, I know I had interviewed you, and it was just like, hey, come into the ranch. You can pay this much for a week, which is next to nothing. It wouldn't even get you a nosebleed at one of these big name concerts.
Right.
And then you have your day rate, which I know those are all things that you guys were finalizing. And I don't know if you want to share what those are now, but
yeah, I mean, the week pass, the same week pass as always, the Monday through Sunday, for pre-sale. which we're gonna try to have these tickets up for sale before Christmas. We're gonna try.
Yeah.
This Saturday night act is we got to get it kind of wrapped up and get things approved so we can do that. But that's our goal, and so we're gonna go probably even until after the first year with a pre-sale ticket of $125 for the entire week.
Yeah.
And then obviously it's going to have to jump up considerably to pay the gate staff and all of that, the concert of, but probably $150 for the week if you're going to wait till the week of, to come through the gate. But if you can get online, go to stubwire.com and buy your tickets beforehand, they're $125. And I think you'll spend $125 to have the same view for Whiskey Myers as you will anywhere.
Yeah. Not to mention the parking. And,
no parking.
And the travel. Like, the cool thing about what you guys have at the Goat Ranch, which just blows my mind, is that, you guys are looking at some kind of entertainment the first Saturday night. You've got entertainment on Monday and food. You've got some kind of entertainment and a steak dinner on Tuesday. And then, which steak dinner I know costs a little bit more for the steak dinner.
Yeah.
But you got entertainment. And then Wednesday night, you've got a big name contemporary Christian band, and you can get an experience. And then you've got bam, 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 Thursday, Friday, Saturday, more concerts. Friday night is going to be Whiskey Myers.
Yeah.
And we were looking up ticket prices just to go and see, what it would be like to have a bad seat at a Whiskey Myers concert right now. And you'd pay that much.
For nosebleed.
$125 or more for a nosebleed.
Yep.
So you just think about paying for your whole week for $125 or $150 even if you show up that week. It's just unheard of. I think it's crazy. I think some people are like, how does that even work logistically? Like, how do you guys make that work?
Well, you asked earlier, like, when does it end, or what's, how do you know when you're there? And, a few years ago, that question was asked, like, what's our goal as far as what are we trying to make? And it was a weird feeling, but it's how I felt. And I said, if we ever make money on this event, we're doing it wrong. Yeah. That is not something that everybody on your team wants to hear the boss say. What do you mean? We're working, we're supposed to try to make money. And people think because we build stuff and we do that, we're building that with money that we've made there. The Stampede's never made money. It's never made money. It costs too much money to do. That was, a completely different thing that I just wanted to do. We had some home runs in some other areas and businesses in our life, and we just wanted to pull that money over and give people something beautiful and something that would make our life also easier. And so that's why we started, building all this stuff. And so, as you were sitting in the meeting, last week, you know where my heart is. When the ticket price comes out, and everybody's like, Josh, we cannot do this for that. You're insane. At some point, we got to get closer to breaking even or making some money so we can, start using that money to build things. And it's, where my fear is. I don't want to lose my families. And I realize it's the cheapest vacation they can possibly go get for the entertainment. I mean, we base the ticket price somewhat off of concerts, and people say, well, we don't care about the concerts. We're just there to camp. Okay, guess what? You'll still pay that camping somewhere. But that's where I'm trying to cover my concert fee, because what we're trying to do is we love our rodeo and Chuckwagon events. Okay. We love them. The problem is a lot of people outside of our way of life have never been to an event like ours. They've been to some rodeo uptown at the fairgrounds or the Saddle Club. They've never been to an event like ours.
Yeah.
And so, we've seen a rodeo. It's not that cool. You haven't seen one at our place. It is that cool. You'll be addicted and you'll come back. You haven't seen a wagon race around a track. I'm telling you, it's crazy. You can feel the rumble in the wagon, and it's a totally different rush when the wagon takes off and he's flying with a cook in the back and the outrider's trying to catch him, or when you open the buck and shoots and that bronc is coming out and he's bucking on grass and he's getting another foot higher in the air.
Yeah.
And when that rider hits the ground, it's a thunk.
Yeah.
You're bringing in cowboys, and now we're attracting with our calf rope, and we're attracting people from Texas, Oklahoma, big players, PRCA, calf ropers. They're coming up to compete. I mean, now we're attracting to some people that's really wanting to play, and they play for keeps, and I love it. I love competition.
Yeah.
And so that's what we're trying to do, is get this environment of this is not just a redneck deal out here. These are real cowboys and cowgirls that's very talented. They're good at what they do, and they'll put their money where their mouth is, and they'll enter an event. And they say, come on.
Yeah, and it's not like stuff you see on TV. I mean, it is, but when you're there in person and you see competition like this in person, not to mention the way that you've set the land up, the way that it's set up for people to be right there at the edge of the action, it's something very unique. And it's also part of a bigger experience too. One thing I think that's really cool about Chuckwagon events, but also at the way that you set up at the Baker-Spain Stampede or at the Goat Ranch, the way that it's like, okay, you paid your entry fee, you're in, there's this event going on in the morning that you can go and hang out, take your side-by-side, take your horse, whatever, go and watch the event, just hang out with the people around you. You have no worries. It's very Hakuna Matata, right?
Yeah.
And once you're in those gates, I think that that's what people love so much about the event, is like there's all this entertainment. You've been working on it with your crew all year, not only booking people and investing and building, but like just actively thinking on the behalf of the spectator. What would they want to see and enjoy? And so you can go from event to event, and it's a Chuckwagon race event, but there's this rodeo, and there's this great concert. And you guys are doing that at a really, really high level. And I think that that's one thing that really sets you guys' event apart. Not to mention, be there on Wednesday night. Even if you don't fancy yourself to be a big church goer or whatever, just go and be there. You don't have to go and get baptized. You don't have to be at the front. You don't have to worship. You don't have to do any of those things. Just go see it. And then let your heart open up, because it will be opened up if you go. If you go to Wednesday night, your heart will be opened, and it's incredible what the rest of the weekend will do. And so, as we kind of wind down here on this, but I just want to commend you on like the work that you guys have done, the way that you have really essentially been siphoned, I think, for what I think you say, you've prayed and you've allowed God to come in and do these things. And I think that God uses us to do things. And so you've kind of been that siphon in a way that has, it's just really opened up these last couple of years. And that's pretty neat to see that, especially as somebody that's recording it, especially as somebody that wants to have a story. The story is there, and it's hard to get all that into one sitting and one podcast, one interview. For the people that stick around and really listen, there's so much more to uncover and to learn about with you guys. And I know that's also why we've been talking about what else can we do to kind of tell your story. Because you have this team, and that if we open that can of worms, we might be here for another hour.
Well, if we, to talk about the team talks a long time, and then obviously if we had them all here, it'd be better just to go to lunch with us, which I think you went one day.
I always have lunch with you guys.
I feed the crew every day.
That's a special thing.
It is. It's fellowship with your brother, and people think they need to go have these board meetings every week. Well, why don't you just go to lunch together and talk about it? And that's the thing. We break bread together. We go into Lockwood, Prairie Station there. We're blessed as a little town to have such a nice little restaurant, and it's incredible work. They're not open on Mondays, so we go to Miller Burger Shack and have one of the best cheeseburgers around. And so that's what we do. That, or every now and then we'll grab a Chinese at Lockwood with Tony. But we're fortunate, and I love the venue, and I love the people that come there. But when asked, what is your favorite thing, it's really my team. It really is. I think, Jordan's always asking, okay, when are you going to stop building stuff? I don't just build stuff because I like the building. I like the building stuff because of our team and having that time with them. And at some point or another, I got to figure out what we're going to do, what we're going to build, because we're just going to run out of things to do. But But yeah, I love our team, and then watching our team come to life. When that first trailer comes in on the ranch, it's fun to watch.
Yeah. No, I think it's been neat to kind of be there at least enough in my own experience, because it's only about an hour 15 drive for me to get to the ranch, and to kind of see what the day to day looks like. That is really that's probably the secret sauce,
Yeah,
to the
absolutely.
success of the event. I think
Yeah.
when you look at what you guys are doing on a day to day basis, it's very much this team effort. And I think that I think that leadership's important too. And I think, seeing how you don't just go out there and tell everybody what to do. It's very much this collaboration.
Yeah.
And I think one thing that's neat that I've seen that you've done with your team is how you've empowered them. And when you empower people and it instills that confidence,
Yep.
they flourish in their ideas.
Oh, absolutely.
And that's one thing that's so cool. And even going to the meeting, getting to go and be there at you guys' like annual meeting, and see your team just walk in. Guys that are just good old boys,
Yeah.
and they just walk in and they're not nervous about speaking. They're not awkward or anything like that. They're like, this is our family. This is what we do. And like, ideas are getting thrown back and forth, and it's like, well, that's going to work because I can do this, this, and this. And
Yeah.
do you need this down there? And I just think it's a beautiful thing what you guys are doing. So
Oh, it is for sure. And like you met Yoakum, we call him Yoakum, David Yoakum.
yeah,
He tells people, because I had him come do some dirt work for me on an entirely other farm. I was like, hey, can you come run this dozer? I didn't know him that well. I knew that he's a cancer survivor. I mean, he's went through cancer. His families went through the fight with him, and I knew he was just a great guy. And I said, I just need you for a few days. And a few days has turned into a few years, and we're family.
yeah.
And my Uncle Todd. He owned Cookies Cafe with his family. Came to me one night and said, "What do you think if I sold this restaurant?" And I told him my thoughts, and he asked my advice on how to do it all, and they agreed to do it. And I said, "Well, there's a track loader down there on that new farm that I bought. You can start running it. I know you like to run equipment." And same story, he's still there, and of course he lives right down the road. He's my uncle, and I irritate him a lot, but I don't know what I'd do without him. I mean, he's like a dad to me, and they really, a lot of them are. Yoakum, and then obviously Monty Russell. Monty Russell worked for the Baker family in the payday loan business for years, helped him get it started, and then when he retired, here he came, and Monty's like 70 some years old, and he's still out there picking up boards. And then my old ag teacher, I saw him at the feed mill that we owned with my cousin there in Lockwood at Arrowhead Milling. He came in there to get some money for the school or something, and he was getting ready to retire. I said, "What are you going to do?" "Well, I don't really know." "So you want to run a brush hog?" And yeah, sure. And I think he thought he'd just be there for a little while, and now he's brush hogging. And then whenever we're in construction and all through winter and spring, he is right there with us putting stuff up. And obviously Willie Guy, and he runs the cattle side of things, and then through the rodeo events, he's the one shuffling the panels around, and he's always at his stuff. You don't have to call Willie Guy and say, "Hey, we're doing this." He knows exactly where to go, and it's amazing because then we have Amber Rose,
Yeah.
who's been with us since year 2, and we couldn't do it without her.
Well, she just runs all these,
She just runs these events, like
all the Western competition.
all the Western stuff,
Yeah.
other than the Chuckwagon racing, but she runs. I mean, she is on it, and like she's at the meeting. And Brandon Wren, our announcer, he's not just our announcer. I mean, we call him, we're talking to him. I mean, he just lives so far away, he can't be at all the meetings, but so when it's me and Jordan and Matt Irwin and Paul Ackles, and we're sat down, it's not just us now. It's Todd, my Aunt Lisa, David, David and Tina Yoakum, and Monty Russell and Catherine. And if you've been at the event, you see Catherine running around all the time with a wet rag trying to cool everybody off. I mean, we just have this team of people, and and now you've come into the picture, and when the opening ceremony video came out, there's times that when we go through budgeting, I'm like, are we gaining from all of the videos? Are we gaining from this? Like, what are we doing this right? And Jordan was just like, David Selby is the man. Like, he is the man, Josh. And so, and then my wife's saying about another man, but and then when that video, when it came, I mean, it was just clarity. Like, yes, like I felt it that we were right. But when that happened, I was like, no, I don't have to tell him, hey, you got to be here. I can have my moment to appreciate the event, and I can do my thing. I don't have to say, hey, we need a camera over here. You're already on it, and you know what needs to be done. And Andy Horton chasing things around, and you get to start going through these names, and you leave people out, but just ladies coming into running the front gate at Heather Barnes up there, and you have these people that just come into this, and it's like, we didn't sit down and say, hey, we need to call this person. Like, it was just like a magnet, and they just came to us. And that is what has been so awesome about this, and having my family involved. And it's only going to keep growing. That family is going to keep growing as the audience keeps growing. And it's just our goal to just keep on plowing away and just pioneering our way through this thing, and sharing this experience with the audience, because we're wanting to get to a point where we get to be more involved with sharing that, where we're not focused on what's got to be done, spreading that out amongst other workers. And there's just nothing better than that.
Yeah. Well, I think it's a pretty neat thing what you guys are doing at the Goat Ranch, and it's been awesome, I guess is the word, to be involved with it. And so thank you for having me involved with it. And obviously I'm always trying to look out for what I can build with the Chuckwagon channel, and how things can work together and everything. And I think a lot of that we've not had to really force anything. It's just been very easy. So I'm excited to see what we do in 2025. I'm sure that more things than we know right now are going to materialize in front of us.
I think so. Yeah. Well, I can tell you one thing that's materialized in the last week is we have a ticket drive-through building up there now. So every time when you come in, there'll be 4 to 5 lanes, office in the middle, and they'll check you right in through the building, and you won't be driving on gravel down there. You'll be driving on chip and seal. And I can't wait for them to cross that bridge, especially those that's already been there, because they're going to say, my gosh, that's a big building, because we're getting ready to build another massive building behind the stage that spans 140 feet, 2-story structure. The whole top story, we'll have our green rooms in there for the bands, but the whole north end is more of a banquet hall. And we don't know what all we're going to put in there. I have some wild ideas about like a shoe shiner, or maybe a straight razor shave. I've kind of thought about that. I'm like, a cowboy used to go get straight razor shaves. And how nice would that be to go in there and get, I just want to take people back. But it's going to have a wraparound porch. And I just want people to, I want to use it as much as possible, whether we, do some weddings down there or whatever. But I want to use it, and I want it to feel like you're back in an old Western store. And how it's going to look is probably going to change end up looking. I've got my mind, but they're starting on it. I mean, we're going to start pouring piers, and, the week after Gary Allen, our little stage that we built, I believe like year 2 or 3, that we had to use, and our acts use that stage.
Didn't know that thing.
I just said, boys, let's wipe this sucker out right now. We need more space. And so we're spanning about 12,000 more feet heading east towards the waterfall, and the square footage of concrete there. And now we're going to add a food truck on that side, and it's going to be where horseback riders can come right up to that food truck and order food throughout the day. And we're going to have that whole north and south fence on the east side of that, where they can, for concerts, all the horseback riders and wagons can pull up there and they have another shot of the stage. No ATVs allowed there. ATVs got to stay on the hill. It's for horseback riders and wagons only. And they're going to have a nice view of the concert. And I'm just super excited because I know what it's going to look like. You know, when you look through the pavilion at night and you see all the wagons lined up there and the Chuckwagon track, and they're watching through the pavilion, the show. They have a good seat there. But the problem is it's not wide enough. We got too many wagons. So we're just going to keep making room for them. And they're going to wrap all the way around that thing. And I cannot wait to see the view of all of the wagons and people on horseback, you know, all the way around that thing.
It's going to be insane.
So watching the show and just, you know, ending the night with a concert. You know, obviously they get down there, they get their money's worth when they watch the Chuckwagon races and the rodeo and roping events and the barrel races and stuff, you know, and the swimming and camping, you know, they get all that. But to end that night with just some good country music or church night, you know, and be able to do it from horseback or your wagon.
Yeah, it's not something you see very often. It's not something you really see anywhere else. I think it's pretty special what you're doing. So throw some dates at me.
Yeah.
And
so gates are going to open the weekend before, the June 21st. June 23rd through the 29th is the date for the Stampede, the Wheat Stampede.
that's from Monday through Saturday, the 23rd through the 29th.
Yep, through Sunday.
And a weekend before that, this is all being finalized right now, but that weekend before you guys are opening the gates, it's going to be the longest version of Baker-Spain Stampede ever. Wife's freaking out a little bit, I'm sure. And it's just going to get a little bit bigger, a little bit more crazy this year.
Well, and as you saw at the meeting, the event list, there's rumpa events, there's all women events coming. We are going to bring some events, some horse pulling. We're going to load this schedule up.
Yeah, never a dull moment. I'm excited for it. Thank you very much for
This is nice. And I mean, the whole thing, the tour, I mean, hey, these people are great. Absolutely great people, great business people and family oriented. I'm glad I made the trip up here.
Yeah, I think things happen for a reason. Like I said, go check out exaga.com, Ag Supply online, and with the holidays coming up, it's a great place to go shop for some gifts. And I stand by saying they're one of the biggest farm toy stores online. So go check them out, exaga.com. Honored to have them as a sponsor for today's show. Josh, again, thanks for being here.
Thank you, brother.
Excited for what's ahead, man.
You bet. Exciting stuff.
Thanks for listening to the CWC podcast.